Kyle Shanahan revealed a bunch of different nuggets on the Tim Kawakami podcast, and honestly, just really opened up the door to let us in, to let us know what has been going on behind the scenes. I always appreciate this type of content because it lets us into a thought process that we weren't familiar with. Obviously, we heard already from the Tim Kawakami podcast that Kyle Shanahan offered the defensive coordinator position this offseason to Bill Belichick, and he politely turned it down. And so we got another nugget. This one's about Tom Brady, and it's about Kyle Shanahan openly talking about pursuing Tom Brady just last year. So I know we've heard about it. We discussed this because it was actually Brock Purdy who kind of brought it to the light. I believe it was an interview with Nick Wagner of ESPN where he just kind of nonchalantly was talking about the offseason process and how Kyle Shanahan approached him about he is going to reach out to Tom Brady and see if he would be willing to come be the quarterback next year. And the Brock had some thoughts on that, but we've already covered that. We've already discussed it. This is more about Kyle's perspective, Kyle's thoughts on it, and it's fascinating because we don't hear this too often. A lot of what we hear from Kyle Shanahan is coach speak, and rightfully so. He's a coach. He's supposed to keep things guarded and close to the vest and things like that. So when you get this opportunity to hear about him reaching out to Tom Brady to come be the quarterback just last year, it's pretty interesting. So take a listen right here as Kyle Shanahan opens up on going after Tom Brady.
Where there's been no quarterback question, no drama, no trade, no whatever. Did that dawn on you? Even last year with Brock,
right,
reasonably established, but he was going through the elbow surgery. You don't know if he's coming back,
right,
when he is. Is that a different for you in your mind? I'm not thinking about the position like I had been worrying about it in previous years.
Yes, it was different. It was, it's so much more relaxing when the position is established. You know exactly where you're going at the position. That guy's healthy. You're just working to constantly get better each day, and that's the fun part about coaching. Now, I wish I could say it makes it a lot more relaxing and everything is chill after that, but no, it just allows you to focus on all the other stuff. And there's always a ton of stuff that happens in the off season, but to have the quarterback position established and to have a year where he is healthy and going into this, it's been very nice, and it was needed.
Yeah, I mean, to have, I imagine it feels like when you had Matt Ryan. Do you feel like a parallel that, okay, I can kind of excel with this position?
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, it's, I'm going pretty much into the third year with them, and we felt so good with them after that first year. We knew what we had, but just that injury was so... It was risky, and a lot of people come back from it, but it was a very violent, hard injury. And to know he only played 7 games and you're going to have to wait till week 1 of training camp to really know, it made the offseason somewhat made you nervous. But now that he did make it through, stayed healthy, played like we thought he would, it's great not having to worry about that position. I mean, going into a draft, free agency, you always think about depth and all that, but I did have that with Matt Ryan, and I go to any other time in my career, and it was with Matt Schaub in Houston, where you had a number of years with a guy where you weren't looking outside of that guy, and when you do have that, it's the time to take advantage of.
Well, I didn't ask you last year, but you did call Tom Brady last offseason, and you told Brock about it.
Yeah.
What was that like, that conversation and just that process? Like, I like my guy, but let's call Tom Brady.
Well, I have to feel very confident just from a football standpoint and from just a relationship standpoint and what's right and wrong, kind of, to feel good about doing something. And I felt very good about that and comfortable. So it wasn't a hard conversation for me with Brock. You'd have to ask him about it. It's not always the best thing that you want to hear. But I thought when I explained it, I looked at it as a huge compliment. After the 2019 season, that was Jimmy's first year as a starter in his career. And he did some really good things. And we almost won a Super Bowl. And he was a young quarterback. We had only played with 1 year. And to get a call a few weeks after that with Tom Brady wanting to come play for us, that was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life, because Tom Brady is the best quarterback to ever play. He's who I've watched since day one of when my career started, and that was kind of a dream of mine. And I knew how good he was, but I also knew we had a very young quarterback who had got us that far. And to sit and risk that young quarterback with, I forget how old he was at the time, 41 or whatever, I just kept thinking, like, what if he comes in at that age, pulls a hamstring, and now I've messed up Jimmy and all that. So it wasn't a fun decision, But I thought for the not only just that year in the long term, it was something that we couldn't mess with. We had to stick with Jimmy at the time. Nothing against Jimmy, but it was hard to avoid Tom. And then watching how that went and stuff, it was tough. And I was like, man, if I ever had a chance again with Tom, that's something I can't pass up. And at the end of the season, when Brock, who we knew was going to be our future, but when he got hurt and no one could guarantee that he was going to be healthy in week one, that he'd for sure come back the right way, there was a lot of speculation in it, and no one could guarantee it. I did want to reach out to Tom. Now, Tom was the only guy. I was willing to ride it and risk with Brock's injuries. I told Brock that. I said, Brock, in these 7 games, you've shown us, like, you're not going to be competing with Trey next year. If you come back healthy, it is your job. The only way it won't be your job is if Tom Brady decided to come here and play 1 year. And I told him this like a week after the season, which I felt confident with because he was hurt. There was questions with him. And I was telling him about Tom Brady. And so I just felt very good when I told him, hey, I know we spent a lot of picks to go get Trey. I know you've only played 7 games. You have a bad injury. But we believe in you, and you are a guy of the future. The only way that won't happen is if Tom Brady comes for 1 year. And so I kind of looked at it as I was giving him the keys. I was telling him how much and saying there's this one outside chance, but I'm going to be dead honest with you. Anything in the back of my head. And that's the only thing in the back of my head. And probably there's not a very high percentage that's going to happen. So I felt like he should be leaving the room thinking, man, they believe in me. Like, the only guy he'd even consider is Tom Brady. So I kind of looked at it as a compliment. And Tom was done. And so it made it real easy. And once Tom told us that, just started counting the days to when Brock could get healthy. We worked really hard with Sam, really hard with Trey, got the depth of our quarterbacks behind Brock well. And Brock did heal up, and he came out and tore it up in training camp, tore it up in week 1, and had a hell of a year.
I mean, phenomenal podcast. I would imagine you should just go listen to the whole thing. There's probably like 3 more things I'm going to clip because Kyle really opened up and discussed a lot of things that we really haven't got his thoughts on. And, this is one of them, him going after Tom Brady. And, I think one of the things that stood out is he apparently made it clear to Brock that he wasn't competing with Trey Lance. And he seemed, to kind of skip over Sam Darnold in the sense, and basically said that if we can get Tom Brady, we're going to get Tom Brady. We don't know what's going on with your elbow. We have no idea if you're even going to be ready by week 1. And if we could get 1 season with Tom, we're going to do it. He talked about skipping over Tom in 2019. And it's like, I'm not going to do that again. And so he tried. You have to respect the effort into, admitting that he made a mistake, not getting Tom that first year, and then back in 2019, and then he's like, "Hey, he's available. I'm gonna try." And Tom obviously has stayed retired since then. I did think it was interesting because Sam Darnold did a podcast where he talked about this. He said effectively the same thing as Kyle, that Brock in 7 games has shown he's deserved to be the starter heading into camp. Now, Sam Darnold did say, and again, this is from Sam directly on a podcast, he said he was told that he had the opportunity to win the job in preseason, not necessarily in practice. So Sam would have had to go out in preseason and ball out. Again, this is from Sam's perspective. So I'm just adding that to the situation. That's what Sam said. But it does kind of align with what Kyle was talking about, kind of essentially saying you did enough in 7 games that this is your job. So, I know a lot was made about Trey Lance competing last year. It sounds like the 49ers knew where the direction of this franchise was heading with Brock. But if you could get 1 year of Tom, hey, why not? Brock Purdy is so cheap, you could do it. And then you could sit behind Tom for a year, learn, soak it up. Hey, maybe you'll be a better quarterback for it. So I don't fault Kyle at all trying to make this roster as competitive and as good as it can get, So I can't be mad at it, honestly. I can understand maybe where Brock might be, and that's where it came across in that article by Nick Wagner. It kind of came across like Brock was like, man, really? After what I just did, you're really? That's the way it came across from my perspective. And I think it was good for Brock in the sense of look at what I did in that 7-game span, and still yet nothing is guaranteed for me. I still have to go out and fight and earn everything that I get. I think that pushed him probably through his rehab process. It pushed him to be ready at the start of training camp. It probably motivated him internally. So, hey, again, the butterfly effect with the San Francisco 49ers is insane. Like the small the things that could have changed the entire trajectory of this franchise, that could have happened, that didn't happen, shoulda, coulda, woulda, all these different things is crazy. It really is crazy. But again, phenomenal insight. I love it. I love hearing this. I love the behind the scenes. I love, you know, getting perspective from these guys, like the coaches, like the general managers. It just provides a different level of understanding of what we cover every day, which is the San Francisco 49ers. And why wouldn't you want more understanding and more perspective that goes into this? And I think Kyle was in the right. I get it. Not faulting him at all for trying, not faulting him at all for going after Bill Belichick. Hey, so you hit some, you miss some, and then you wind up with Brock Purdy. And it worked out probably maybe for the better. I mean, we'll never know, but who knows what Brock Purdy is going to accomplish with the San Francisco 49ers and how much runway he's earned with that performance that he had last year. Now he can build on it. Super excited about it. Let me know what you guys think about this. Would you have sacrificed Brock Purdy's season last year for 1 year with Tom Brady? Now, keep in mind, this hypothetical doesn't guarantee a Super Bowl. I know a lot of people believe, like, oh, it just means we would have won the Super Bowl. We don't know that. We don't know if that would have been the year that Tom fell off. We don't know if that's the year that his body just broke down. We have no idea. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comments below. And again, go check out this podcast. Phenomenal podcast. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.